When they arrived at the river, Akim saw the girls making their small sacrifices and begged them to give her a small share so that she could do the same, but they refused, and all of them walked across the river safely, except Akim. Once upon a time, there lived a girl called Akim. She was a native of Ibibio, and the name was given to her on account of her good looks, as she was born in the springtime. Akim was an only daughter, and her parents were extremely fond of her. Akim's parents were poor, but she was a good daughter and gave them no trouble. So they had a happy home. One day, as Akim was on her way to draw water from the spring, she met the company of 7 girls. These girls told her that they were going to hold a play in town in 3 days and asked her to join them. She said she was very sorry that her parents were poor and only had herself to work for them. She therefore had no time to spare for dancing and play. She left them and went home. Later in the evening, the 7 girls met together, and as they were very envious of Akim, they discussed how they should be revenged upon her for refusing to join their company, and they talked for a long time as to how they could get Akim into danger or punish her in some way. At last, one of the girls suggested that they should all go to Akim's house every day and help her with her work, so that when they had made friends with her, they would be able to entice her away and take their revenge upon her for being more beautiful than themselves. Although they went every day and helped Akim and her parents with their work, the parents knew that they were jealous of their daughter and repeatedly warned her not on any account to go with them, as they were not to be trusted. At the end of the year, there was going to be a big day called the New Yam Play. Akim's parents were invited for this New Yam Play. Akim was very anxious to go and take part in the dance, but her parents gave her plenty of work to do before they started thinking that this would surely prevent her from going, as she was very obedient daughter and always did her work properly. On the morning of the play, the jealous 7 came to Akim and asked her to go with them, but she pointed to all the water pots she had to fill and showed them where her parents had told her to polish the walls with a stone and make the floor good. And after that was finished, she had to put all the weeds round the house and clean up all round. She therefore said it was impossible for her to leave the house until all the work was finished. When the girls heard this, they took up the water pots, went to the spring, and quickly returned with them filled. They placed them in a row, and then they got stones, and very soon had the walls polished and the floor made good. After that, they did the weeding outside and the cleaning up. And when everything was completed, they said to Akim, "Now then, come along, you have no excuse to remain behind." Akim finally agreed to go with them. About halfway to the town, where the New Yam Play was being held, there was a small river, about 5 feet deep, which had to be crossed by the girls walking on the water, as there was no bridge. In this river, there was a powerful juju whose law was that whenever anyone crossed the river and returned the same way on the return journey, whoever it was have to give some food to the juju. If they did not make the proper sacrifice, the juju dragged them down and took them to his home and kept them there to work for him. The 7 jealous girls knew all about this juju, having often crossed the river before, as they walked about all over the country and had plenty of friends in different towns. Akim, however, who was a good girl and never went anywhere, knew nothing about this juju, which her companions have found out. When the walk was finished, they all started off together and crossed the river without any trouble. When they had gone a small distance on the other side, they saw a small bird perched on a high tree, who admired Akim very much and sang in praise of her beauty, much to the annoyance of the 7 girls. But they walked on without saying anything, and as they arrived at the town where the play was being held, Akim had not taken the trouble to even change her clothes. But when she arrived at the town, although her companions had all their best beads and their fine clothes, the young men and people admired Akim far more than the other girls, and she was declared to be the finest and most beautiful woman at the dance. They gave her plenty of palm wine and food and everything she wanted, so that the 7 girls became more angry and jealous than before. They all sat down and had their food, but each of the 7 jealous girls hid a small quantity of food and fish in her clothes for the juju. However, Akim, who knew nothing about this and her parents had forgotten to tell her about the water juju, never thinking for a moment that their daughter would cross the river, did not take any food as a sacrifice to the juju with her. When they arrived at the river, Akim saw the girls making some sacrifices to the juju. She begged them to give her a small share so that she could do the same, but they refused and all walked across the river safely. When it was Akim's turn to cross, she arrived in the middle of the river, and the water juju caught hold of her and dragged her underneath the water, so that she immediately disappeared from sight. The 7 girls had been watching for this, and when they saw that she had gone, they went on their way, very happy that their plan had worked, and they said to one another, "Now Akim is gone forever, and we shall hear no more about her being better looking than we are." As there was no one to be seen at the time when Akim disappeared, they naturally thought that their cruel action had escaped detection. So they went home rejoicing, but they never noticed the little bird high up in the tree, who had sung of Akim's beauty when they were on their way to the play. The little bird was very sorry for Akim and made up his mind that when the proper time came, he would tell her parents what he had seen, so that perhaps they would be able to save her. The bird had heard Akim asking for a small portion of food to make a sacrifice with, and had heard the girls refusing to give her any. The following morning, when Akim's parents returned home, they were much surprised to find that the door was closed and that there was no sign of their daughter anywhere about the house. So they inquired of their neighbors, but no one was able to give them any information about her. They then went to the 7 girls and asked them what had become of Akim. They replied that they did not know what had become of her, but that she had reached their town safely with them, and then said she was going home. The father then went to his juju man, who by casting lots discovered what had happened and told him that on her way back from the play, Akim had crossed the river without making the sacrifice to the water juju, and that as the juju was angry, he had seized Akim and taken her to his home. He therefore told Akim's father to take 1 goat, 1 basket of eggs, and 1 piece of white cloth to the river in the morning and to offer them as a sacrifice to the water juju. Then Akim would be thrown out of the water 7 times, but that if her father failed to catch her on the 7th time, she would disappear forever. Early the following morning, the parents went to the river and made the sacrifice as advised by the juju. Immediately they had done so, the water juju threw Akim up from the middle of the river. Her father caught her at once and returned home very thankfully. The news of Akim's return got the 7 girls afraid. They tried to escape from the village, but unfortunately, Akim's father had reported the case to the king of their village. The king immediately sent his guards to capture them, and they were banished away from the village forever. Moral lesson of this story is that you should never kill a man or woman because you are envious of their beauty, as if you do, you will surely be punished.